A former Biden advisor and Democratic operative guest hosted on the Fox propaganda show Outnumbered, and he kicked a veritable hornet's nest when he pointed out the fact to his four right-wing co-hosts that crime spiked under Donald Trump and has declined under President Biden. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bell before you go. I'd greatly appreciate it. All right, friends, so the protagonist of this particular clip is a guy I've actually featured in previous videos, but it's relatively rare because I don't see him on that often. It's a guy named Kevin Walling. He worked for President Biden, then Joe Biden, during the 2020 election, and he occasionally appears on the Fox Propaganda Network in a capacity like Marie Harf, or more notably, Jessica Tarlov, right, in which he's outnumbered and he's trying to bring a voice of reason and sanity in a room typically deprived of it. And so he appeared on the show Outnumbered, which is similar to the show The Five, and he basically assumed the role of Jessica Tarlov. He's outnumbered 4-1 by open Trump supporters, people like Kayleigh McEnany, who used to work for Donald Trump as his press secretary, and Harris Faulkner. And he's trying to bring facts and logic, again, in a room which is completely devoid of it. And during a segment in which these MAGA co-hosts were low-key celebrating persistent polling showing that Americans feel that crime is worse under Joe Biden than it was under Donald Trump, Kevin Walling pointed out the fact that the data show otherwise, that actually crime spiked under Trump and has been declining year after year under President Biden. And he got a pretty heated response from them.
Certainly, it's good advice to Democrats. Listen, the president had all major police chiefs to the White House just last month. Violent crime is across the board down in most major cities, and that's something we need to talk about, certainly, as Democrats. Listen, the highest jump in the homicide rate, the murder rate in this country annually happened in the last year of the Trump administration. It didn't happen in any of the Biden years over these last 3 years. So, again, the president is running on his record. Donald Trump is a different situation than 2016, has a record he's got to defend as well.
I consider illegal fentanyl brought in by drug cartels and mules and illegal people crossing our border. I consider that murder.
And
that is horrible, but that's not murder, right? Murder has a very specific legal definition, and these are parameters that law enforcement agencies, both local, state, and federal, including the FBI, have used to evaluate crime statistics for years. But again, Harris Faulkner wants to moralize the issue. Well, I think this other terrible thing is murder. It's not murder, not legally, but of course it's terrible. But by the way, I don't know why you would want to try to insinuate that Biden is responsible for that, as she obviously just tried to do. Because when Donald Trump was president, not even in 2020, in 2019, fentanyl deaths spiked to an unprecedented level under Donald Trump. So by Harris Faulkner's logic, Donald Trump is responsible for that. But of course, she would never say that because it's inconvenient to her political messaging. Just again, want to point it out. Fentanyl deaths spiked historically under Donald Trump, not Joe Biden. And yes, it's still obviously an issue under Joe Biden, but it didn't originate with Joe Biden. And it's that I also point out before we get to the crime part, since I just want to kind of nip this in the bud. Again, something I pointed out before, that in addition to record numbers of drug seizures at the southern border under President Biden, which is objective, incontrovertible proof that Border Patrol, border security, is actually making a concerted effort under Biden to stop and interdict these drugs, we also have unused high-tech fentanyl drug scanning machines, which are collecting dust because of Republicans in Congress, because they don't want to fund their usage, right? Because they want to use it as a wedge issue. So again, I want to make this very clear. Because of Republicans, because of elected Republicans, because of congressional Republicans, the party that Harris Faulkner supports and grades on a curve, people are dying from fentanyl. We can actually say that Joe Biden is doing everything in his legal power to try to stop it. We can also point to examples of Republicans are doing everything in their power to avoid addressing it because they want to benefit from it politically, thus demonstrating once again the fact that elected Republicans are morally inferior to elected Democrats. But again, Harris Faulkner can't deal with that. So that's the fentanyl issue. So something else I want to point out is, again, Kevin Walling is right. And we've talked about this in a recent video about Congresswoman Nancy Mace, the lying Republican grifter. The data show that violent crime, including homicides, declined precipitously in 2023. And I think they declined in 2022 as well. So it's been noticeably on the decline under President Biden. Okay, that's simply a fact. But it's also a fact that Fox News is bending over backwards to avoid reporting on, as Media Matters published a study, Fox News barely covered an FBI report showing crime rates declined significantly in 2023. In the 2 weeks after the FBI report was released, Fox News gave just 2 minutes, two minutes of coverage to the decline in crime rates in the 2 weeks, 1 minute per week. That's how little they care about the facts, and that's how little they care about reporting anything positive under the Biden administration, a Democrat. The latest FBI report revealed a continuation of post-pandemic trends in which crime in the U.S. declined significantly in 2023, MSNBC reported, including likely the largest one-year decline in murder that has ever been recorded, according to the crime analyst Jeff Asher, with a 13% drop nationwide. The FBI report also found that the overall violent crime rate declined by 6%, and property crime declined 4% in the fourth quarter of 2023 compared to the same period in 2022. But again, 2 minutes from the Fox propaganda network, because of course it's politically inconvenient. I'll also point out, because I like pointing this out, right-wingers got really, really mad when, again, Nancy Mace, Republican congresswoman, effectively regurgitated the claim that Fox News does all the time, which is that crime is spiking under Joe Biden. Again, a blatant lie. She was community noted for her lie, and then Elon Musk apparently intervened and ripped the note away. But before it was done, right-wingers were furious on Twitter. It plummeted under Biden after spiking under Biden, with the exception of 2020 Summer of Love, a.k.a. Trump, because Trump was president in 2020, not Joe Biden. And except for 2022, it's still at a 20-year high, okay? Well, duh. When something goes up precipitously, it will probably take time for it to decline. The point is that it's declining year over year. It's going in the right direction. But this is how the Republican MAGA cultist brain works. They want to blame Biden for not quickly cleaning up Donald Trump's mess. Something terrible happens under Trump, and they blame Biden for, number one, for it happening under Trump. Obviously, they'll never blame Trump for it. And number two, for Biden not effortlessly and instantaneously resolving a problem that began under Trump. That's how the MAGA brain works. It's insane. As I pointed out, MAGA losers are bitter over the community note and struggling to cope with the fact that crime spiked under Trump and is declining under Biden. 2020 sucked and Trump was president in 2020, no matter how much you morons want to pretend otherwise. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And I did some great artwork there, Trump. Of course, many MAGA Republicans are illiterate, so they probably can't read that. But yeah, that's how it works. This is the grade on which Republicans grade Trump and the absurdly high standard that they grade Biden. And listen, I want to be clear. I'm not necessarily blaming Trump for the crime spike in 2020, and I'm not necessarily crediting Biden for the decline in crime. I think that's so complicated that I'm not prepared unless somebody can present me with an excellent argument and evidence that either president is responsible for the good or the bad. But it did happen on Donald Trump's watch. And given that the logic seems to be if something bad happens under a president's watch, they get the blame for it, then by that logic, Trump should get the blame for high crime in the United States, and Biden should get the credit for it declining on his watch. But again, Republicans don't want to live in that world. But good on Kevin Walling for pointing it out. The last thing I'll say is that same crime analyst, that celebrated crime analyst, Jeff Asher, is also pointing out preliminary data, because we're just in early April, that murder is falling even faster. Murder rates are falling even faster so far in 2024 than they did in 2023. That's an excellent trend and also happening under Joe Biden. Let me know what you think in the comments.